Hi everyone, I'm Sargon from Utopian. Welcome to the first Vue.js tutorial video. In this tutorial, we are gonna learn how to create node chart with using Vue.js D3-Network and Materialize CSS package. Firstly, we are gonna talk about D3-Network, Virtual DOM and two-way data binding. Virtual DOM and two-way data binding are special and very important features of Vue.js. We will use these features in all parts of our Vue.js tutorial series, so we need to talk about these features. The D3 network comes from the D3 JavaScript library and it can be used with Vue.js. D3 network is a kind of chart but in the node form. Unlike normal charts, we can drag node chart elements and change their locations. D3 means data-driven documents. Vue.js D3 network is designed to take a simple data framework that has too many columns defining the source and targets of the nodes in a network and turn it into a node chart. We can easily define our node's color, elements, connections, and node size of the chart with using Vue.js library. And also Vue.js library supports Virtual DOM. We have two questions about Virtual DOM. What is the Virtual DOM and what are the differences from real DOM? DOM means Document Object Model. DOM creates a path between HTML and Vue.js to get information from HTML and to provide information to JavaScript, then to retrieve information from JavaScript and to provide information to HTML. At the end of these operations, updates made with JavaScript functions will be sent to HTML with render and the update we made will display on the web page. Virtual DOM also consists of objects and data. In fact, all the data we will use is the DOM. This means we can create DOM elements using our data. We can use headings, canvas, SVG, paragraphs, division IDs and such as DOM element. I know there is a very complex bind between HTML DOM and JavaScript DOM and it is hard to understand. I tried to tell it in the cleanest way. If you don't understand, I would recommend you to rewind the video because these informations are very important for the next Vue.js tutorial videos. And also if you still don't understand, you can ask me about the concepts you don't understand in the comments section. And our second question is, what are the differences from real DOM? DOM manipulations that we do in the real DOM are very expensive in price. With Vue.js version 2, Virtual DOM aka in-memory DOM was released. Virtual DOM finds out the difference we want to make in the data and inserts it into the real DOM. And in this way, we can continue our project with the real DOM as soon as possible. Using the Virtual DOM is both easily and faster than using the real DOM. Okay, let's talk about two-way data binding. Previously, two-way data binding feature was not available in Vue.js, but two-way data binding support was added in Vue.js version 2. I'm using Vue.js version 2 because we will always use two-way data binding feature in our projects. How does two-way data binding work on Vue.js? For example, what will happen if we change our message in the DOM via an input type? Everything will continue to work properly because two-way data binding is enabled on Vue.js version 2. In this case, we will need to add an input to our project file with an attribute view model and define it our message property. Briefly, two-way data binding is when our data is bound from the DOM back to JavaScript. You will understand these concepts better when we're creating the node chart, and also we will learn in detail the many important concepts such as virtual DOM and two-way data binding in next Vue.js video tutorials. We will focus on D3 network concepts because this Vue.js tutorial subjects about D3 network. Firstly, we will create the Utopian IO community managers with their categories as a chart node form with using Vue.js and Materialize CSS. We will add a scaler. It is a kind of magnifier, but differently from the magnifier, we can reduce and enlarge the node size we will create. We will add it to set the size of node chart elements between 1 and 1000, so it will provide us to enlarge and reduce the node chart elements. Okay, now we can start our project. As usual, we need to open XM control panel server and we need Apache and MySQL Server. We need to use these resources in order to complete our project properly. Resources will be in the links section. Firstly, we need to define an ID for our project because when we write Vue.js scripts, we will need a division ID we will define. And I will define ID as Utopian node. After that, we use it here our simple menu comments division class as container and unordered list class as menu. We defined these classes for scalar. Scalar will provide us to enlarge and reduce our node chart, as you know. Now we can create our scalar heading between li tags. We defined our heading as change node size, and I set the location as the center with center tags. We will create an input type using the two-way data binding feature. As you know, this is one of the special functions of Vue.js. We need to create a scalar, so we will define the Vue model as node size using input type. As you know, the Vue model function works only with the Vue.js two-way data binding special function. As well as the Vue model, we will define the input type as range because scalar needs a range for magnification and reduction movement. As you can see, we defined input type as range and Vue model as node size to adjust the size of our node chart. And also we defined minimum value as 1 and maximum value as 1000. This means we can grow or shrink the node chart from 1 to 1000. After that, we define it here options.nodeSize with curly brackets. This means, as you know, we will define several functions in the script section. Among the script tags for the scalar, we define it as options. We will define several functions to adjust the dimensions of the node chart elements. With these curly brackets, we have defined a type of task ID for the scalar, and we will set scalar node size options with functions in the script section. We also used options.nodeSize to make the node size adjustable. Now we will use the D3-Network specific comments to create all the data IDs of the node chart. These comments are completely special comments written for D3-Network and are only used when creating a node chart. Let's talk about what these functions means. Our first network is net nodes utopian nodes. As you know, net means network. We defined network nodes ID as utopian nodes. Net nodes must be the same as division ID we specified here. This point is really important because if it will not be the same, the functions we will use in the script section may not work properly. And our second network is netlinks utopian connections. After that, we defined network links as utopian connections. This means we will create a node chart, that is, community managers and their categories will be connected to each other. So we have defined these connections ID as utopian connections. By using this ID, we can create connections to the target from the source in the script section. And we defined options as options. We will define the settings of the node chart and node elements with the options ID in the script section. Okay, that's all of the D3-Network's HTML body codes. Now we can switch to the script section to use the special functions of Vue.js. Firstly, we need to specify that D3-Network as a var and our D3-Network variable will work on window with Vue D3-Network. This function is a special function and it's only using for D3-Network. And now we can start to write our important scripts with new Vue instance, which we will always use. Firstly, we will write the ID of the element we want to be affected. If you remember, we defined division ID as utopian node here, and now we will use this ID as new Vue instance element to define the scripts needed for node chart. Now we need to write our elements for utopian node chart. To do this, first we need to define our component as D3-Network. And now we can define community managers and their categories with data function by giving all the data elements unique IDs. Firstly, we defined data ID as utopian nodes. If you remember, we recently defined network nodes as utopian nodes, as you can see here. We used data functionality with return to define utopian node elements. As you know, our elements are community managers and their categories. We also defined categories and community managers node colors with _color. This means video tutorials will appear as red and bucket URL color will appear as green. The other categories and their community managers will appear according to the colors we defined. We have defined unique IDs for each category, community managers and Utopian IO for Utopian node chart. We will use these IDs for Utopian connections, which we define as network links, and node chart connections will be completed. Okay, our first D3-Network data is finished. Our next network data about Utopian connections. As you can see, we define it here network links as Utopian connections. Let's create connections among community managers and their categories. As you can see, we used netlinks ID here. Let's have a look at these connections. First, I need to explain to you the meaning of SID and TID. SID means source ID and TID means target ID. As you can see here, our source ID is 1. ID 1 belongs to video tutorials. We defined video tutorials category as source ID and we defined a target ID as 2. That means video tutorials category will connect with the bucket URL community manager. We have correctly defined other community managers and their categories according to their IDs. After that, we connected all community managers and their categories as source ID to the Utopian IO node. And also we defined Utopian IO as target ID. In this way, the Utopian IO node will appear in the center of the page and all community managers and their categories will turn around the Utopian IO node. At this time, community managers and their categories are still connected to each other. And as you can see, we defined default node size as 35 here. This means when we open the site, we will see the node chart as 35 pixels. And as you know, we defined node size changer option ID as node size and we used it here view model option ID as node size. Okay, that's all of the data we need for D3-Network. Now we need to use the computed properties to set all the properties of the node chart. Let's talk about computed properties. Computed properties will provide us to have view model specific and complex values will computed for the view. We will change the node chart elements size and connection distance with the node size changer. So we will change the DOM view on the page. Therefore, we will set these values using computed properties so that these values will be computed correctly and the calculated values will depend on the dependency values and these values will only be updated when necessary. Briefly, with the help of computed properties, we will define our node's width and height values, connection distance between the node chart elements, and we will also approve the default node size. We defined node labels values as true for display the names of the categories and community managers we have written the nodes. After that, we have defined these width and height values so that the node chart appears in the center of the page. And after that, we approved node size here with these node size so that the node size changer will work and at the same time we approved default node size here. And finally, we defined force value as 10,000. This value for connection distance. You can change this value as you like. Okay, that's all for our first Vue.js tutorial video. Let's save our project with Ctrl S and let's check what we did. Localhost 8080 and D3-Network. node.html. As you can see, our node size changer and node chart are here. Let's try scalar. As you can see, node size changer working properly. And when we move over our cursor on connect lines and node elements, we can easily see the community managers and their categories connections clearly, as you can see. And we can change the position of the node elements as we want. As you can see, we can change the position. And let's check codes with inspect element. Let's click console, and as you can see here, everything we create is working properly. We came to the end of our first Vue.js video tutorial. Thanks for watching my tutorial video. See you later in next education videos.